Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about the question, does parenting actually exist? Strange question, perhaps. What I was looking at was the following. Um, when I first became a parent, I quickly realized that there were certain things I was lacking, where in my interaction, communication, and attitude with my child, I could tell there's a definitive lack in kind of knowing how to approach things and how to look at things and how to work with my son. And this led me to investigate all sorts of different parenting ideas, streams, schools of thought, where everyone has their different way of looking at things and dealing with it. Where within myself, I was experiencing this whole parenting thing as me learning or having to master some extracurricular skill for myself, because in raising my son, it was getting clearer and clearer there's points of conflict, and I don't actually have all the tools I need to effectively work with a child. Um, but what I realized was that it's not so much about me having to acquire new parenting skills, new ways of dealing with a child. What I realized was that in having my own child, what I experienced, what I was faced with in raising my child was the reality of myself. And the reality of myself was not that I was lacking as a parent. What was lacking was me as a human being, me as a person, where all the little points that were missing in my relationship towards my child were actually points that had been missing in my life most of my life, where it was not just in relation to my child, but it was in relation to friends, family, money, you name it. It's just that these kind of lacks, I suppose, are like inefficiencies inside yourself. If you don't have a child and you live with other adults who also have their mistakes and flaws, it's very easy to kind of just cope and reason things away or make them seem okay and not so bad, because your own personal, say, your shadow side of yourself is not very easily reflected in other people around you, in your environment, because everyone is dealing with their shadow self. The things that you actually should change, your weaknesses, points you struggled with your entire life. And because everyone as adult is kind of in that, it's kind of unclear to see kind of, okay, was I being, say for instance, too brutal in this moment, or is this person just simply very sensitive? Like, it's kind of hard to tell, like, okay, if a conflict happens in your life, how much of it was me and how much of it was the other person? So you always kind of have a back door to kind of put it on the situation instead of looking at yourself. Whereas if you have a child, it's this blank, pristine canvas slate. And everything that's going on to that child, it's you. And it gives you kind of the perfect setting to really reflect on yourself and who you have become, because it's as this blank child is absorbing your patterns, your characters, how you look at things, how you move with things, and throws it back at you, you're like, whoa, something's wrong here. Is this how I've been living? Or maybe you don't ask yourself how have I been living, but for sure you start asking questions, because you realize this relationship is not harmonious. There's a lot of conflict happening between me and my child, which is something every parent naturally picks up on and knows this is not how I want to live. So the more I started working with on myself with my son in changing things I didn't like about myself that he was now reflecting back to me, I wasn't only changing them in relation to my son. I started changing them in relation to everything in my life, whether it was colleagues, friends, pets, work. Everywhere where I could, I would start taking that point of change towards my son and doing it everywhere. For instance, very very simple example. Um, one of the one of the easiest, well, fastest things you face as a parent is the whole, when your child's a baby, it's like, okay, am I going to soothe my child? Am I going to pick them up when they're crying in their cot while they actually should be sleeping? And that whole point is not just with your child. Like, there's someone obviously in need of help. Am I going to let them kind of suppress the whole experience and just deal with it? Or am I going to be there and support this little person until he's through? Then I started realizing how often I take the same approach, not just to babies, but to people in my life, to myself, where I had a kind of pattern of assuming people would just just deal with it, just get over it, not actually putting the time and effort to be there with that person and walk the path they need to walk to come to a point of resolution or understanding so that they can not experience themselves in that distressful way. Or I was even doing it to myself. I wouldn't give myself time or space to really look at things and think things through and see if I've made the right decisions. So, back to the question, does parenting actually really exist? I would say no, because parenting, who you are as a person in relation to your children, is a reflection of who you are in everything you do. It's a living testament of your character. So if you find that you need help with your child, that you need help in finding different ways of being with them, it's not an indication that your parenting skills need work. It's an indication that you as a person need to change and do things differently in all areas of your life. And this is kind of also a relief because it makes the whole parenting, like previously it's this big thing out there, it grounds the whole point because it's really just you being yourself, and whatever you do is an extension of yourself, which is reflected in your relationship with your child and everything else you do in your world. So use that opportunity, that point of having a child, a blank slate that is just gonna mimic back to you whatever you throw at it and reveal to you in all the ways you haven't been aligned with your true self, let's say, and use that to change towards your child, but not only your child, but every single aspect in your world or reality. Because if you're only going to go to different parenting techniques or methods, and you're going to only apply and use them to the extent that only in the relationship with you and your child, but in the rest of your life you're still going to be the same old person. First of all, it's not going to be effective because your child is seeing that you're double-faced. There's two worlds. I can't trust what my parent is showing me. And second of all, you're not really going to change. It's just a band-aid. So my suggestion would be to look at parenting as living and exploring parenting as a living testament of who you are, and unconditionally investigate, challenge things, not just with your child, but everything in your world. Because when I started doing that, it changed a lot. Like, I could see in how many ways I was sabotaging myself, but where in my reality with my friends, my co-workers, working with money, it wasn't coming through very clearly. But here you have a child who's a blank slate and will unconditionally show you what it is you need to work with. So take that. There's not many opportunities in life where you get to be in that space. So For me to answer, does parenting exist? I would say parenting does not exist. The parenting, in terms of you having a child, does provide you with a very specific space, situation to improve yourself, to make the best of yourself, and in turn, allow your child to be the best version of themselves. Thank you very much.